For today's presentation, I will be using Aristotle's The Golden Mean and Kant's improvement of it, the categorical imperative, to dissect a modern-day media ethics issue, specifically the controversial publishing and editing process of popular stories over the years. I'll be using stories we learned about in class so everybody can have a concrete basis on what happened and already have their own opinions. Thus, knowing Kant and Aristotle's moral ethics and values, they can begin to form their own opinion of this project. I want to begin to give the viewer an understanding of Aristotle's method, the Golden Mean. There was a category known as excess. Under that category fell foolhardiness, vanity, timidity, apathy, buffoonery, arrogance, bashfulness, vulgarity, obsessiveness, and asceticism. On the other hand, there was deficiency, which was cowardice, undue meekness, wrathfulness, aggression, boorishness, false modesty, flamboyance, small-mindedness, laziness, and lack of self-restraint. Both of these categories were bad in the terms of his golden mean. The ideal was to be right in the middle and meet at the golden mean. Under this term fell courage, rightful pride, gentleness, patience, wittiness, truth of oneself, modesty, social magnificence, perseverance, and temperance. Today we'll be depicting 3 stories, and at the end we'll see where they fall in Aristotle's The Golden Mean. A bit of background on Kant's thoughts were the categorical imperative. With this, morality is meant to guide our actions. So when we go to do something, what should be guiding it and the driving force behind it should be our morals. So whatever we do, we should have a moral background behind it. He had said that we act on maxims, principle of action, and what we intend. Everything has a cause and effect, but with this, what it was saying is when we do something, we're always intending something. So it's looking at what we truly intended. Morality is universal, which is the same for everyone. This can come to the basic terms of do unto others as you want done to yourself. So you act only that a maxim through which you can at the same time, well, that it should become universal law. So if it was done then and now, it can always be done. We'll use this to compare to the likes of Katie Couric, Stephen Glass, and even Elliot Schaffner. One of the stories we'll be looking into is one about Katie Couric that we learned in class. Couric did an interview on a group of members of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, a group that doesn't see eye to eye with the NRA when it comes to gun rights. Couric has asked the question, according to VCDL President Philip Van Cleve, if there are no background checks for gun purchasers, how do you prevent felons or terrorists from purchasing a gun? They then edited the piece and the question is followed by silence and footage of the gun rights advocates looking uncomfortable and silent. The gun rights advocates made their own audio recordings of this interview with Couric, and they did not match up. In their version, they immediately responded to Couric's question. The way the documentary edited the responses seemed designed to make the gun owners look stupid. This was a morality decision, and they did this to their favor. What they did was they took the video clips, mashed them up a little bit, and inserted clips in between their questions, which didn't follow the pace or flow of the interview at all. The next person we'll be talking about is Elliot Schaffner. Schaffner became the Richmond Times dining critic in January. She had stolen passages from a 2011 LA Weekly restaurant story by Pulitzer-winning critic Jonathan Gold. Schaffner had originally stated that she must have confused her notes with some of Gold's that she had written down because she was a fan of him. As time went on, it was discovered that she had plagiarized him numerous times. This began to become a problem because not only has she plagiarized, but now the Richmond Times had published many plagiarized works. The more and more was researched, it was found out that she plagiarized him dating back to when she first started. One of her passages had up to 3 quotes from Gold in it. The last person we'll be talking about is Stephen Glass. In 1998, it was revealed that many of his published articles were fabrications. Over a 3-year period as a young rising star at the New Republic, Glass invented quotation sources and events in articles he wrote for the magazine and others. Most of Glass's articles were of the entertaining and humorous type. Some were based entirely on fictional events. Several seemed to endorse negative stereotypes about ethnic and political groups. This became a problem because Glass was making sources up had no factual evidence, and was even inserting his own quotes without any actual backing. It was discovered that he's been doing this for a while now, and he was doing this to rise to fame with good stories and a lot of details, but this is something you can't do in journalism. So what I did here was took a chart of Aristotle's The Golden Mean, and I put shapes next to the categories that they would fall under. This chart is for Couric. So in an excess of the Golden Mean, she would have fell under foolhardiness, apathy, buffoonery, bashfulness, and obsessiveness. She was obsessed to nail this people, and in the process, she bashed them, thus creating buffoonery. It was very foolhardiness of her. On the other hand, deficiency, she was very cowardice in doing this. It was small-minded to do this and to edit a clip and make people look bad when that's not what actually happened. This was a lack of self-restraint because this is something you shouldn't do in journalism. This chart right here goes over Schaffner. She had an excess of vanity, apathy, buffoonery, and obsessiveness. For obsessiveness on this one, I chose this because she was obsessed with gold, and she took his quotes and used them for her own personal gain, which is buffoonery. She was obsessed with herself and her achievements, and that's what led her to do what she wanted to do. On the other hand, deficiency, she was cowardice due to plagiarizing, small-mindedness, and lazy for not going out and taking the time to write her own reviews. This is a lack of self-restraint. This chart compares the actions of Glass from Aristotle. He had an excess of vanity, apathy, buffoonery, and obsessiveness. He was obsessed with becoming the top journalist, and this is what led him to make the decisions that he made. He should have never made up sources. Journalism is all about reporting to the people, facts. What he did was completely the opposite of that. On the other hand, deficiency, he was cowardice, boorishness, small-mindedness, laziness, and had a lack of self-restraint. Ultimately, he let his personal ego and goals blind his journalism morals, and this is something that Aristotle couldn't agree on and wouldn't have liked. As you can begin to pull from the comparisons, nor Kant or Aristotle would approve of these decisions. You can begin to see how Couric, Schaffner, and Glass are somewhat the same people. They made a lot of the same moral decisions. They didn't care about what would happen afterward. They all intended bad things, and they weren't looking out for other people. These are all very unmoral decisions. Hopefully they can start to make better choices in the future if they followed Kant and Aristotle's guidelines. You can see from the charts none of them fell into categories that happen to be in the golden mean. This is the problem and can begin to tell you why their moral compass was off. This not only was looked down on morally, but to the public, and they are all chastised and somewhat punished for doing the things they've done. It also took a tick on their careers, and people know this as it's public stories now. Each site that I pulled from information on these stories are listed below. Also, I want to thank Google Images for all the images provided for this project, and I used the Rowan Instructure site for backup information and stories that we learned in class. Thank you very much.